The Mali Empire was an empire in West Africa from circa 1235 to 1670. The empire was founded by Sundiata Keita and became renowned for the wealth of its rulers, especially Mansa Musa. The Manding languages were spoken in the empire. At its peak, Mali was the largest empire in West Africa, profoundly and widely influencing the culture of the region through the spread of its language, laws and customs. Much of the recorded information about the Mali Empire comes from 14th-century North African Arab historian Ibn Khaldun, 14th-century Moroccan traveler Ibn Battuta and 16th-century Moroccan traveler Leo Africanus. The other major source of information is Mandinka oral tradition, as recorded by storytellers known as griots. The empire began a small Mandinka kingdom at the upper reaches of the Niger River, centered around the town of Niani. During the 11th and 12th centuries, it began to develop as an empire following the decline of the Ghana Empire, or Wagadu, to the north. During this period, trade routes shifted southward to the savannah, stimulating the growth of states such as Benin. The early history of the Mali Empire is unclear, as there are conflicting and imprecise accounts by both Arab chroniclers and oral traditionalists. Sundiata Keita is the first ruler for which there is accurate written information. Sundiata Keita was a warrior prince of the Keita dynasty who was called upon to free the Mali people from the rule of the king of the Sosso Empire, Soumaoro Kanté. The conquest of Sosso in circa 1235 gave the Mali Empire access to the trans-Saharan trade routes. Following the death of Sundiata Keita in circa 1255, the kings of Mali were referred to by the title Mansa. In circa 1285 Sakura, a former royal court slave, became emperor and was one of Mali's most powerful rulers, greatly expanding the empire's territory. He made a pilgrimage to Mecca during the reign of Mamluk Sultan and Nasir Muhammad, but died on his voyage home. After the reigns of three more emperors, Musa Keita became Mansa in circa 1312. He made a famous pilgrimage to Mecca from 1324 to 1326. His generous gifts to Mamluk Egypt and his expenditure of gold caused significant inflation in Egypt. Maghan I succeeded his father as Mansa in 1337, but was deposed by his uncle Suleiman in 1341. It was during Suleiman's 19-year reign that Ibn Battuta visited Mali. Suleiman's death marked the end of Mali's golden age and the beginning of a slow decline. It is known from the Tariq al-Sudan that Mali was still a sizable state in the 15th century. The Venetian explorer Alvise Cadamosto and Portuguese traders confirmed that the peoples of the Gambia were still subject to the Mansa of Mali. Upon Leo Africanus's visit at the beginning of the 16th century, his descriptions of the territorial domains of Mali showed that it was still a kingdom of considerable area. However, from 1507 onwards neighboring states such as Daira, Great Fulo and the Songhi Empire chipped away at the outer borders of Mali. In 1542, the Songhi invaded the capital city of Niani but were unsuccessful in conquering the empire. During the 17th century, the Mali Empire faced incursions from the Bamana Empire. After unsuccessful attempts by Mansa Mama Maghan to conquer Bamana, in 1670 the Bamana sacked and burned Niani, and the Mali Empire rapidly disintegrated and ceased to exist, being replaced by independent chiefdoms. The Keitas retreated to the town of Kongaba, where they became provincial chiefs. Geography. Territory. The Mali Empire reached its largest area under the Lakeda Manzas. Al-Umari, who wrote down a description of Mali based on information given to him by Abu Sa'id Otman ed Dukalai, reported the realm as being square and an 8-month journey from its coast at Tura to Muli. Umari also describes the empire as being south of Marrakesh and almost entirely inhabited except for few places. Mali's domain also extended into the desert. He describes it as being north of Mali but under its domination implying some sort of vassalage for the Antazar, Yantaris, Medusa and Lamtuna Berber tribes. The empire's total area included nearly all the land between the Sahara Desert and coastal forests. It spanned the modern-day countries of Senegal, southern Mauritania, Mali, northern Burkina Faso, western Niger, the Gambia, Guinea-Bissau, Guinea, the Ivory Coast and northern Ghana. By 1350, the empire covered approximately 478,819 square miles. The empire also reached its highest population during the Lay period, ruling over 400 cities, towns and villages of various religions and elasticities. During this period only the Mongol Empire was larger. The dramatic increase in the empire's growth demanded a shift from the Mandan Kurufaba's organization of 3 states with 12 dependencies. This model was scrapped by the time of Mansa Musa's Hajj to Egypt. According to Alumari, who interviewed a Berber that had lived in the capital for 35 years, there were 14 provinces. In Alumari's record, he only records the following 13 provinces and 5 states: Ghana, Zagun or Zafun, Taraka or Taranka, Takrur, Sanagana, Bambuk or Bamfu, Zargatabana, Darmora or Babatra Darmora, Zaga, Kabura or Kabura, Barakuri or Barauri, Gao or Kaka, Mali or Mandan. Capital debate. The identity of the capital city of the Mali Empire is a matter of dispute among historians. Scholars have located the capital in Niani, or somewhere on the Niger, or proposed that it changed several times, that there was no true capital, or even that it lay as far afield as the Upper Gambia River in modern-day Senegal. Seemingly contradictory reports written by Arab visitors, a lack of definitive archaeological evidence, and the diversity of oral traditions all contribute to this uncertainty. A particular challenge lies in interpreting early Arabic manuscripts, in which, without vowel markings and diacritics, foreign names can be read in numerous different ways. Ibn Battuta and Leo Africanus both call the capital Mali. Early European writers such as Maurice de la Fosse believed that Niani, a city on what is now the border between Guinea and Mali, was the capital for most of the empire's history, and this notion has taken hold in the popular imagination. Jibril Tamsir Nian, a Guinean historian, has been a forceful advocate of this position in recent decades. The identification of Niani as imperial capital is rooted in an interpretation of the Arab traveler al-Umari's work, as well as some oral histories. Extensive archaeological digs have shown that the area was an important trade and manufacturing center in the 15th century, but no firm evidence of royal residence has come to light. Niani's reputation as an imperial capital may derive from its importance in the late imperial period, when the Songhay Empire to the northeast pushed Mali back to the Manding heartland. Several 21st-century historians have firmly rejected Niani as a capital candidate based on a lack of archaeological evidence of significant trade activity, clearly described by Arab visitors, particularly during the 14th century, Mali's Golden Age. Various sources cite several other cities as capitals of the Mali Empire, some in competition with the Niani hypothesis and others addressing different time periods. A city called Diaraba or Dioliba is sometimes mentioned as the capital or main urban center of the province of Mandé in the years before Sundiata, that was later abandoned. Many oral histories point to a town called Dakajalan as the original home of the Keita clan and Sundiata's childhood home and base of operations during the war against the Sosso. It may have been located close to modern Kongaba. Mandé bards in the region speak of the Dakajalan site, containing Sundiata's grave, as sacrosanct. Kongaba became the last refuge of the Keita royal family after the collapse of the Mali Empire, and so has for centuries been associated with Sundiata in the cultural imagination of Mandé peoples. If Dakajalan was, in fact, situated near Kongaba, this may have also have contributed to their conflation, beginning with de la Fosse's speculation that the latter may have begun as a suburb of the former. According to Jules Vidal and Lev Sion, citing oral histories from Kongaba and Kela, another one-time capital was Manakura or Malikura, founded after the destruction of Niani. Parallel to this debate, many scholars have argued that the Mali Empire may not have had a permanent capital in the sense that the word is used today, and historically was used in the Mediterranean world. Rather, authority would rest with the Mansa and his court, wherever he went. Therefore, Arabic visitors may have assigned the capital label merely to whatever major city the Mansa was based out of at the time of their visit. History. Pre-Imperial Mali. The rock art in the Sahara suggests that northern Mali has been inhabited since 10,000 BC, when the Sahara was fertile and rich in wildlife. By 300 BC, large organized settlements had developed, most notable near Djenné, one of West Africa's oldest cities. By the 6th century AD, the lucrative trans-Saharan trade in gold, salt and slaves had begun, facilitating the rise of West Africa's great empires. There are a few references to Mali in early written literature. Among these are references to Pen and Malal in the work of al-Bakri in 1068, the story of the conversion of an early ruler, known to Ibn Khaldun as Barmandana, and a few geographical details in the work of al-Idrisi. In the 1960s, archaeological work at Niani village, reputed to be the capital of the Mali Empire, by Polish and Guinean archaeologists revealed the remains of a substantial town dating back as far as the 6th century. Modern oral traditions also related that the Mandinka kingdoms of Mali or Mandan had already existed several centuries before Sundiata's unification as a small state just to the south of the Sonic Empire of Ouagadougou, better known as the Ghana Empire. This area was composed of mountains, savanna and forest, providing ideal protection and resources for the population of hunters. Those not living in the mountains formed small city-states such as Toran, Kaba and Niani. Through the oral tradition of griots, the Keita dynasty, from which nearly every Mali emperor came, claims to trace its lineage back to Lalo, one of the sons of Bilal, the faithful muezzin of Islam's prophet Muhammad, who was said to have migrated into Mali, and his descendants established the ruling Keita dynasty through Maghan Khan Fatah, father of Sundiata Keita. It was common practice during the Middle Ages for both Christian and Muslim rulers to tie their bloodline back to a pivotal figure in their faith's history, so the lineage of the Keita dynasty may be dubious at best, yet African Muslim scholars like the London-based Nigerian-British cleric Sheikh Abu Abdullah Adelabu have laid claim of divine attainments to the reign of Mansa Musa. In Islamic history and its science stories of Old Mali Empire and significance of Mansa Musa by ancient Muslim historians like Shihab al-Umari, documenting histories of African legendaries like Mansa Musa did actually exist in early Arabic sources about West African history, including works of the author of Sub al-Aisha, one of the final expressions of the genre of Arabic administrative literature, Ahmad al-Qalqashandi, Egyptian writer, mathematician and scribe of the scroll, and then the Mahmood II in Cairo, as well as by the author of Kitab al-Musalik wa al-Mamalik, Abu Ubaid al-Bakri, an Arab Andalusian Muslim geographer and historian emboldened Keita dynasty, wrote Adelabu. In his attempt to justify the importance of the Keita and their civilization in early Arabic literatures, Adelabu, the head of Oxford Africa in London, coined the Arabic derivatives --kwy of the word Keita, which in Arabicized Mandingo language Allah Kaiya, meaning Allah creates all, is a favorable motto of reflection for Bilal ibn Rabah, one of the most trusted and loyal Sahaba of the Islamic prophet Muhammad, whom he described as a tall, dark, and with African feature and bushy hair pious man who overcame slavery, racism and socio-political obstacles in Arabia to achieve a lofty status in this world and in the hereafter. The Manding Region. The history of the Mandinka started in Manding/Mandan region. This region straddles the border between what is now southern Mali and northeastern Guinea. Hunters from the Ghana Empire, particularly mythical ancestors Contran and Sanin, founded Manding and the Malinke and Bambaras hunter brotherhood. The area was famous as a hunting ground for the large amount of game that it sheltered, as well as its dense vegetation. The Kamara are said to be the first family to have lived in Manding, after having left, due to the drought, Oualeta, a region of Ouagadougou, in the southeast of present-day Mauritania. They founded the first village of the Manding, Kiraroni, then Kirina, Sibi, Keita. A very large number of families that make up the Mandinka community were born in Manding. The Kongaba province. During the height of Sundiata's power, the land of Mandan became one of its provinces. The Mandan city-state of Kaba served as the capital and name of this province. From at least the beginning of the 11th century, Mandinka kings known as Famas ruled Mandan from Kaba in the name of the Ghanas. The two kingdoms. Ouagadougou's control over Mandan came to a halt after internal instability led to its decline. The Kongaba province, free of Sonic influence, splintered into 12 kingdoms with their own Maghan or Fama. Mandan was split in half with the Dadougou territory to the northeast and the Cree territory to the southwest. The tiny kingdom of Niani was one of several in the Cree area of Mandan. The Kaniaga rulers. In approximately 1140, the Sosso kingdom of Kaniaga, a former vassal of Ouagadougou, began conquering the lands of its old rulers. By 1180 it had even subjugated Ouagadougou, forcing the Sonic to pay tribute. In 1203, the Sosso king Soumaoro of the Kanté clan came to power and reportedly terrorized much of Mandan, stealing women and goods from both Dadougou and Cree. The Hungering Lion. According to Niani's version of the epic, during the rise of Kaniaga, Sundiata of the Keita clan was born in the early 13th century. He was the son of Niani's Fama, Nare Fa. Sundiata's mother was Maghan Fata's second wife, Sagalan Keju. She was a hunchback from the land of Du, south of Mali. The child of this marriage received the first name of his mother and the surname of his father. Combined in the rapidly spoken language of the Mandinka, the names formed Sundiata or Sundiata Keita. The anglicized version of this name, Sundiata, is also popular. In Ibn Khaldun's account, Sundiata is recorded as Mari Jata, with Mari meaning emir or prince. He also states that Jata or Jata means lion. Prince Sundiata was prophesied to become a great conqueror. To his parents' dread, the prince did not have a promising start. Sundiata, according to the oral traditions, did not walk until he was 7 years old. However, once Sundiata did gain use of his legs, he grew strong and very respected. Sadly for Sundiata, this did not occur before his father died. Despite the Fama of Niani's wishes to respect the prophecy and put Sundiata on the throne, the son from his first wife Sassuma Bareti was crowned instead. As soon as Sassuma's son Dankaran II took the throne, he and his mother forced the increasingly popular Sundiata into exile along with his mother and 2 sisters. Before Dankaran II and his mother could enjoy their unimpeded power, King Soumaoro set his sights on Niani, forcing Dankaran to flee to Kisidugu. After many years in exile, first at the court of Wagadu and then at Mima, Sundiata was sought out by a Niani delegation and begged to combat the Sosso and free the kingdoms of Mandan forever. Battle of Kirina. Returning with the combined armies of Mima, Wagadu and all the rebellious Mandinka city-states, Maghan Sundiata led a revolt against the Kaniaga kingdom around 1234. The combined forces of northern and southern Mandan defeated the Sosso army at the Battle of Kirina in approximately 1235. This victory resulted in the fall of the Kaniaga kingdom and the rise of the Mali Empire. After the victory, King Soumaoro disappeared, and the Mandinka stormed the last of the Sosso cities. Maghan Sundiata was declared Fama of Famas and received the title Mansa, which translates roughly to emperor. At the age of 18, he gained authority over all the 12 kingdoms in an alliance known as the Mandan Kuru Faba. He was crowned under the throne named Sundiata Keita, becoming the first Mandinka emperor. And so the name Keita became a clan/family and began its reign, Mari Jata I/Sundiata Keita I. Mansa Mari Jata, later named Sundiata Keita, saw the conquest of several key locales in the Mali Empire. He never took the field again after Kirina, but his generals continued to expand the frontier, especially in the west where they reached the Gambia River and the marches of Tekrur. This enabled him to rule over a realm larger than even the Ghana Empire in its apex. When the campaigning was done, his empire extended 1,000 miles east to west, with those borders being the bends of the Senegal and Niger rivers respectively. After unifying Mandan, he added the Wangara goldfields, making them the southern border. The northern commercial towns of Walata and Otagost were also conquered and became part of the new state's northern border. Wagadu and Mima became junior partners in the realm and part of the imperial nucleus. The lands of Bambugu, Halo, and Kabu were added into Mali by Fakali Koroma, Fran Kamara and Ramakan Traore, respectively. Among the many different ethnic groups surrounding Mandan were Pular-speaking groups in Makana, Tekrur, and Futa Jalan. Imperial Mali. Imperial Mali is best known through 3 primary sources. The first is the account of Shihab al-Omari, written in about 1340 by a geographer-administrator in Mamluk, Egypt. His information about the empire came from visiting Malians taking the Hajj, or pilgrim's voyage to Mecca. He had first-hand information from several sources, and from a second-hand source, he learned of the visit of Mansa Musa. The second account is that of the traveler Ibn Battuta, who visited Mali in 1352. This is the first account of a West African kingdom made directly by an eyewitness, the others are usually second-hand. The third great account is that of Ibn Khaldun, who wrote in the early 15th century. While the accounts are of limited length, they provide a fairly good picture of the empire at its height. The Emperors of Mali. There were 21 known Mansas of the Mali Empire after Mari Jata I, and probably about 2 or 3 more yet to be revealed. The names of these rulers come down through history via the Jalis and modern descendants of the Keita dynasty residing in Kanaba. What separates these rulers from the founder, other than the latter's historic role in establishing the state, is their transformation of the Mandan Kurufaba into a Mandan Empire. Not content to rule fellow Manding subjects unified by the victory of Jata I, these Mansas would conquer and annex Fula, Wolof, Bamana, Songhai, Tuareg and countless other peoples into an immense empire. Sundiata Keita lineage. The first three successors to Jata/Sundiata Keita all claimed it by blood right or something similar. This 25-year period saw large gains for the Mansa and the beginning of fierce internal rivalries that nearly ended the burgeoning empire. Wali I. After Sundiata's death in 1255, custom dictated that his son ascend the throne, assuming he was of age. However, Yeralinkan was a minor following his father's death. Manding Keita, Sundiata's half-brother in Kankoro Siki, should have been crowned according to the Korukan Fuga. Instead, Jata's son seized the throne and was crowned Mansa Wali Keita. Mansa Wali Keita proved to be an efficient emperor, adding more lands to the empire, including the Gambian provinces of Badi and Kassa. He also conquered the gold-producing provinces of Bambuk and Bandu. The central province of Konkodugu was established. The Songhai kingdom of Gao also seems to have been subjugated for the first of many times around this period. Aside from military conquest, Wali is also credited with agricultural reforms throughout the empire, putting many soldiers to work as farmers in the newly acquired Gambian provinces. Just prior to his death in 1270, Wali went on the Hajj to Mecca during the reign of Mamluk Sultan Baybars, according to Ibn Khaldun. This helped in strengthening ties with North Africa and Muslim merchants. The general's sons. As a policy of controlling and rewarding his generals, Jata adopted their sons. These children were raised at the Mansa's court and became Kedas upon reaching maturity. Seeing the throne as their right, two adopted sons of Jata waged a devastating war against one another that threatened to destroy what the first two Mansas had built. The first son to gain the throne was Mansa Wali Keita in 1270. He reigned for 4 years, spending lavishly and ruling cruelly, according to the Jalis. Upon his death in 1274, the other adopted son seized the throne. Mansa Khalifa Keita is remembered as even worse than Wali Keita. According to the Jalis, he governed just as badly, was insane and fired arrows from the roof of his palace at passers-by. Ibn Khaldun recounts that the people rushed upon him and killed him during a popular revolt. The Gabara replaced him with Manding Keita in 1275. The court Mansas. After the chaos of Wali Keita and Khalifa Keita's reigns, a number of court officials with close ties to Sundiata Keita ruled. They began the empire's return to stability, setting it up for a golden age of rulers. Abubakari Keita I. Manding was crowned under the throne name Mansa Abubakari. Mansa Abubakari's mother was Namanj, the third wife of Maghan Fatah. Prior to becoming Mansa, Abubakari had been one of his brother's generals and later his Kankoro Siki. Little else is known about the reign of Abubakari I, but it seems he was successful in stopping the hemorrhaging of wealth in the empire. Sakura. In 1285, a court slave freed by Sundiata Keita, and who had also served as a general, usurped the throne of Mali. The reign of Mansa Sakura appears to have been beneficial, despite the political shakeup. He added the first conquest to Mali since the reign of Wali, including the former Ouagadougou provinces of Tekir and Daira. His conquest did not stop at the boundaries of Ouagadougou, however. He campaigned into Senegal and conquered the Wolof province of Dialof, then took the army east to subjugate the copper-producing area of Takeda. He also conquered Makana and raided into Gao to suppress its first rebellion against Mali. More than just a mere warrior, Mansa Sakura went on the Hajj during the reign of al-Nasir Muhammad. Mansa Sakura also opened direct trade negotiations with Tripoli and Morocco. According to one account, Sakura was murdered on his return trip from Mecca in or near present-day Djibouti by a Danakil warrior attempting to rob him. The emperor's attendants rushed his body home through the Wadai region and into Khanum, where one of that empire's messengers was sent to Mali with news of Sakura's death. When the body arrived in Niani, it was given a regal burial despite the usurper's slave roots. The Kolankan Lineage. The Gabara selected Ko Mamadi Keita as the next Mansa in 1300. He was the first of a new line of rulers directly descending from Sundiata Keita's sister, Kolankan Keita. But, seeing as how these rulers all shared the blood of Maghan Fatah, they are considered legitimate Keitas. Even Sakura, with his history of being a slave in the Keita family, was considered a Keita, so the line of Bilal had yet to be broken. It is during the Kolankan Lineage lineage that the defining characteristics of Golden Age Mali begin to appear. By maintaining the developments of Sakura and Abubakari II, the Kolankan Mansas steered Mali safely into its apex. The Gao Mansas. Mamadi Keita was crowned Mansa Keita and ruled over a successful empire without any recorded crises. His son, Mansa Muhammad ibn Gao Keita, ascended the throne 5 years later and continued the stability of the Kolankan line, Abubakari II. The last Kolankan ruler, Bata Manding Keita, was crowned Mansa Abubakari II in 1310. He continued the non-militant style of rule that characterized Gao and Muhammad ibn Gao Keita but was interested in the empire's western sea. According to an account given by Mansa Musa I, who during the reign of Abubakari II served as the Mansa's Kankoro Sigi, Mali sent 2 expeditions into the Atlantic Ocean. Mansa Abubakari II left Musa Keita as regent of the empire, demonstrating the stability of this period in Mali, and departed with the second expedition, commanding some 2,000 ships equipped with both oars and sails in 1311. Neither the emperor nor any of the ships returned to Mali. Modern historians and scientists are skeptical about the success of either voyage, but the account of these happenings is preserved in both written North African records and the oral records of Mali's Chilis. The Lakeda Lineage. Abubakari II's 1312 abdication, the only recorded one in the empire's history, marked the beginning of a new lineage descended from Faga Lakeda. Faga Lakeda was the son of Abubakari I. Unlike his father, Faga Lakeda never took the throne of Mali. However, his line would produce 7 Mansas who reigned during the height of Mali's power and toward the beginning of its decline. Musa I. The first ruler from the Lay lineage was Kolankan Musa Keita, also known as Mansa Musa. After an entire year without word from Abubakari II, he was crowned Mansa Musa Keita. Mansa Musa Keita was one of the first truly devout Muslims to lead the Mali Empire. He attempted to make Islam the faith of the nobility, but kept to the imperial tradition of not forcing it on the populace. He also made Eid celebrations at the end of Ramadan a national ceremony. He could read and write Arabic and took an interest in the scholarly city of Timbuktu, which he peaceably annexed in 1324. Via one of the royal ladies of his court, Musa transformed Sankor from an informal madrasa into an Islamic university. Islamic studies flourished thereafter. Mansa Musa Keita's crowning achievement was his famous pilgrimage to Mecca, which started in 1324 and concluded with his return in 1326. Accounts of how many people and how much gold he spent vary. All of them agree that he took a very large group of people. The Mansa kept a personal guard of some 500 men, and he gave out so many alms and bought so many things that the value of gold in Egypt and Arabia depreciated for 12 years. When he passed through Cairo, historian al-Makhrizi noted the members of his entourage proceeded to buy Turkish and Ethiopian slave girls, singing girls and garments, so that the rate of the gold dinar fell by 6 dirhams. Another testimony from Ibn Khaldun describes the grand pilgrimage of Mansa Musa consisting of 12,000 slaves. He made a pilgrimage in 724-1324. At each halt, he would regale us rare foods and confectionery. His equipment furnishings were carried by 12,000 private slave women wearing gown and brocade and Yemeni silk. Mansa Musa came from his country with 80 loads of gold dust, each load weighing 3 kantars. In their own country they use only slave women and men for transport, but for long journeys such as pilgrimages they have mounts. Contemporary sources suggest that the mounts employed by this caravan were 100 elephants, which carried those loads of gold, and several hundred camels, carrying the food, supplies and weaponries which were brought to the rear. Musa took out large loans from money lenders in Cairo before beginning his journey home. It is not known if this was an attempt to correct the depreciation of gold in the area due to his spending, or if he had simply run out of the funds needed for the return trip. Musa's Hajj, and especially his gold, caught the attention of both the Islamic and Christian worlds. Consequently, the name of Mali and Timbuktu appeared on 14th-century world maps. While on the Hajj, he met the Andalusian poet and architect S. Saheli. Mansa Musa brought the architect back to Mali to beautify some of the cities. But more recent analysis suggests that his role, if any, was quite limited. The architectural crafts in Granada had reached their zenith by the 14th century, and it's extremely unlikely that a cultured and wealthy poet would have had anything more than a dilettante's knowledge of the intricacies of contemporary architectural practice. Mosques were built in Gao and Timbuktu along with impressive palaces also built in Timbuktu. By the time of his death in 1337, Mali had control over Taghaza, a salt-producing area in the north, which further strengthened its treasury. That same year, after the Mandinka general known as Sagmandir put down yet another rebellion in Gao, Mansa Musa came to Gao and accepted the capitulation of the king of Ghana and his nobles. By the end of Mansa Musa's reign, the Sankore University had been converted into a fully staffed university with the largest collections of books in Africa since the Library of Alexandria. The Sankore University was capable of housing 25,000 students and had one of the largest libraries in the world with roughly 1 million manuscripts. Mansa Musa Keita was succeeded by his son, Maghan I, in 1337. Mansa Maghan I spent wastefully and was the first lackluster emperor since Khalifa Keita. But the Mali Empire built by his predecessors was too strong for even his misrule and it passed intact to Musa's brother, Suleiman Keita in 1341. Suleiman Keita. Mansa Suleiman Keita took steep measures to put Mali back into financial shape, thereby developing a reputation for miserliness. However, he proved to be a good and strong ruler despite numerous challenges. It is during his reign that Fula raids on Takrur began. There was also a palace conspiracy to overthrow him hatched by the Kasakasi and several army commanders. Mansa Suleiman's generals successfully fought off the military incursions, and the senior wife Kasi behind the plot was imprisoned. The Mansa also made a successful Hajj, kept up correspondence with Morocco and Egypt and built an earthen platform at Kongaba called the Kamambolan where he held court with provincial governors and deposited the holy books he brought back from Hedges. The only major setback to his reign was the loss of Mali's Dialof province in Senegal. The Wolof populations of the area united into their own state known as the Jolof Empire in the 1350s. Still, when Ibn Battuta arrived at Mali in July 1352, he found a thriving civilization on par with virtually anything in the Muslim or Christian world. Mansa Suleiman Keita died in 1360 and was succeeded by his son, Kamba Keita. The North African traveler and scholar Ibn Battuta visited the area in 1352 and, according to a 1929 English translation, said this about its inhabitants. The Negroes possess some admirable qualities. They are seldom unjust, and have a greater abhorrence of injustice than any other people. There is complete security in their country. Neither traveler nor inhabitant in it has anything to fear from robbers or men of violence. The Travels of Ibn Battuta. Abu Abdallah ibn Battuta was born in Morocco in the year 1304. Years later, during his mandatory pilgrimage to Mecca as a Muslim and a Qadi, he decided that what he wished to do most was travel to and beyond every part of the Muslim world. Upon this realization, Ibn made a personal vow to never travel any road a second time. He began on his long and eventful journey, making many stops along the way. It was in Cairo, Egypt, that he first heard of the great ruler of Mali, Mansa Musa. A few years prior to Battuta's visit, Mansa Musa had passed through Cairo as well on his own pilgrimage to Mecca. He had brought with him a large entourage of slaves, soldiers and wives, along with over 1,000 pounds of gold. With this he flooded Cairo to the point of disrupting the entire gold market for decades to come. Aside from gold, Mali traded many other lavish resources and its riches were spoken of widely, along with encouraging Islam across Africa. There is no doubt that, even after his long and tiring travels, a curious Ibn Battuta would saddle up again to make the long journey across the Sahara and into the Kingdom of Mali. After entering the country and staying for 8 long months, Ibn left with mixed feelings. At first his impressions were not good. As a meal he was offered a bowl of millet with honey and yogurt. Seeing this as offensive, he wished to leave as soon as possible. During his stay he was also fed rice, milk, fish, chicken, melons, pumpkins and yams. From the king, he was gifted 3 loaves of bread, a gourd full of yogurt, and a piece of beef fried in shea butter. He was insulted by this as well, feeling that the gift was inadequate for him. When I saw it I laughed, and was long astonished at their feeble intellect and their respect for mean things. He was also taken aback by the local customs regarding the sexes. In his mind, man and woman should be separate in an Islamic society. Here the sexes were friends, spent time with one another and were agreeable. Upon his disapproval he was told that their relations were a part of good manners, and that there would be no suspicion attached to it. To his surprise, female servants and slaves also often went completely nude in front of the court to see, which would not have been acceptable as a Muslim or any kind of woman. They wore no veil and crawled on their hands and knees, throwing dust over themselves when approaching their ruler, Mansa Suleiman. Mansa Suleiman was the younger brother of Mansa Musa who took reign after he died. The public ceremony he attended was strange to him but grand, as he observed from the audience. Has a lofty pavilion, where he sits most of the time. There came forth from the gate of the palace about 300 slaves, some carrying in their hands bows and others having in their hands short lances and shields. Then 2 saddled and bridled horses are brought, with 2 rams which, they say, are effective against the evil eye. The interpreter stands at the gate of the council place wearing fine garments of silk. And on his head a turban with fringes which they have a novel way of winding. The troops, governors, young men, slaves, and others sit outside the council place in a broad street where there are trees. Anyone who wishes to address the Sultan addresses the interpreter and the interpreter addresses a man standing and that man standing addresses the Sultan. While he had his grievances, there were parts of Mali that Ibn Battuta found to be exceptional. For one, the safety in the streets of Mali went unmatched. The city was very secure with many guards and it was said that no man walked afraid in the streets of Mali. The people also held justice to a very high standard and that was notable for Ibn. Most importantly, he was impressed with the people's devotion to Islam. There were mosques there that people visited regularly, and they always prayed on Friday, the holy prayer day established by Mansa Musa for Muslims. The citizens wished to learn more about the Islamic faith and seemed to be very involved with the teaching of the Quran. Although many had converted and had a zeal for Islam, there were many common people who still held on to their traditional African religions. Mansa Suleiman had to appease these people as well, which is something that Ibn may not have considered and viewed as an insult to Islam. In the end, Suleiman attempted to appease him by giving him a house to stay at and an allowance as well. Upon his departure, Ibn left with 100 mithqals of gold and diverse feelings towards the kingdom of Mali. Modern Mali. Where the Empire of Mali reigned covered the modern-day areas of Mali, Mauritania, Senegal, Gambia, and Guinea, along with small regions of the Ivory Coast, Burkina Faso, and Niger. For the most part Mali is covered, with the rest just having areas of the ancient empire cross into their borders. After a series of unsuccessful successions and exchanges of power and changes of ruler, the Empire of Mali was weakened greatly. As a result of these issues a civil war erupted upon the kingdom which further incapacitated Old Mali. Because of the war going on, trade was disrupted. Trade was a huge reason that the empire was thriving economically, and so its disruption led to a direct collapse of the empire entirely. Jata II. After a mere 9 months of rule, Mansa Keda was deposed by one of Maghan I's 3 sons. Kanko Dugu Kamisa Keda, named for the province he once governed, was crowned as Mansa Jata II in 1360. He ruled oppressively and nearly bankrupted Mali with his lavish spending. He did, however, maintain contacts with Morocco, sending a giraffe to King Abu Hassan. Mansa Jata II became seriously ill in 1372, and power moved into the hands of his ministers until his death in 1374. Musa II. The reign of Jata II was ruinous and left the empire in bad financial shape, but the empire itself passed intact to the dead emperor's brother. Mansa Fatima Musa Keda, or Mansa Musa II, began the process of reversing his brother's excesses. He did not, however, hold the power of previous Mansas because of the influence of his Kankoro Sigi. Kankoro Sigi Jata, who had no relation to the Keda clan, essentially ran the empire in Musa II's stead. Ibn Khaldun recorded that in 776 AH or 1374 1375 AD he interviewed a Shijilmasan scholar named Muhammad B. Wasil who had lived in Gao and had been employed in its judiciary. The latter told Ibn Khaldun about devastating struggle over Gao between Mali imperial forces against Berber Tuareg forces from Takeda. The text of Ibn Khaldun says Gao, at this time is devastated. It seems quite possible that an exodus of the inhabitants took place at this juncture and the importance of the city was not revived until the rise of the Songhai Empire. The Songhai settlement effectively shook off Mali's authority in 1375. Still, by the time of Mansa Musa Keita II's death in 1387, Mali was financially solvent and in control of all of its previous conquests short of Gao and Dialof. 40 years after the reign of Mansa Musa Keita I, the Mali Empire still controlled some 1,100,000 square kilometers of land throughout Western Africa. Maghan II. The last son of Maghan Keita I, Tenan Maghan Keita was crowned Mansa Maghan Keita II in 1387. Little is known of him except that he only reigned 2 years. He was deposed in 1389, marking the end of the Faga Lakeda Mansis. The obscure lineages. From 1389 onwards, Mali gained a host of manses of obscure origins. This is the least known period in Mali's imperial history. What is evident is that there is no steady lineage governing the empire. The other characteristic of this era is the gradual loss of its northern and eastern possessions to the rising Songhai Empire and the movement of the Mali's economic focus from the trans-Saharan trade routes to the burgeoning commerce along the coast. Sandaki Keda. Mansa Sandaki Keda, a descendant of Kankoro Sigi Mari Jata Keita, deposed Maghan Keita II, becoming the first person without any Keita dynastic relation to officially rule Mali. Sandaki Keda should not, however, be taken to be this person's name but a title. Sandaki likely means High Counselor or Supreme Counselor, from San or Sanon and Adegwe. He would only reign a year before a descendant of Mansa Keita removed him. Maghan Keita III. Mahmood Keita, possibly a grandchild or great-grandchild of Mansa Keita, was crowned Mansa Maghan Keita III in 1390. During his reign, the Mossi Emperor Bonga of Yatenga raided into Mali and plundered Magana. Emperor Bonga did not appear to hold the area, and it stayed within the Mali Empire after Maghan Keita III's death in 1400, Musa Keita III. In the early 15th century, Mali was still powerful enough to conquer and settle new areas. One of these was Diama, an area south of Niani populated by Fula Wasalunk. 2 noble brothers from Niani, of unknown lineage, went to Diama with an army and drove out the Fula Wasalunk. The oldest brother, Saraban Jugu Keita, was crowned Mansa Fomed or Mansa Musa Keita III. His reign saw the first in a string of many great losses to Mali. In 1430, the Tuaregs seized Timbuktu. 3 years later, Walata also fell into their hands. Wali II. Following Musa Keita III's death, his brother Ber Keita became emperor in the mid-15th century. Ber Keita was crowned Mansa Wali Keita II and ruled during the period of Mali's contact with Portugal. In the 1450s, Portugal began sending raiding parties along the Gambian coast. The Gambia was still firmly in Mali's control, and these raiding expeditions met with disastrous fates before Portugal's Diogo Gomes began formal relations with Mali via its remaining Wolof subjects. Ulvise Cadamosto, a Venetian explorer, recorded that the Mali Empire was the most powerful entity on the coast in 1454. Despite their power in the west, Mali was losing the battle for supremacy in the north and northeast. The new Songhai Empire conquered Mima, one of Mali's oldest possessions, in 1465. It then seized Timbuktu from the Tuareg in 1468 under Sunni Ali Bur. In 1477, the Yatenga Emperor Nasser made yet another Mossi raid into Makana, this time conquering it and the old province of Ba, Ghana. Mansa Mahmood Keita II. Mansa Mahmood Keita II came to the throne in 1481 during Mali's downward spiral. It is unknown from whom he descended, however. Another emperor, Mansa Maghan Keita III, is sometimes cited as Mansa Mahmood Keita I. Still, throne names don't usually indicate blood relations. Mansa Mahmood Keita II's rule was characterized by more losses to Mali's old possessions and increased contact between Mali and Portuguese explorers along the coast. In 1481, Fula raids against Mali's Tekrur provinces began. The growing trade in Mali's western provinces with Portugal witnessed the exchange of envoys between the two nations. Mansa Mahmood Keita II received the Portuguese envoys Pero de Vora and Gonçalo Enes in 1487. The Mansa lost control of Halo during this period. Meanwhile, Songhai seized the salt mines of Taghaza in 1493. That same year, Mahmood II sent another envoy to the Portuguese proposing alliance against the Fula. The Portuguese decided to stay out of the conflict and the talks concluded by 1495 without an alliance. Mansa Mahmood Keita III. The last Mansa to rule from Niani is Mansa Mahmood Keita III, also known as Mansa Musa Keita II. He came to power around 1496 and has the dubious honor of being the Mansa under which Mali suffered the most losses to its territory. Songhai forces under the command of Askia Muhammad I defeated the Mali general Fadi Kwali Keita in 1502 and seized the province of Diafunu. In 1514, the Denayanth dynasty was established in Tekrar. It wasn't long before the new kingdom of Great Fulo was warring against Mali's remaining provinces. Additionally, the Songhai Empire seized the copper mines of Takeda. In 1534, Mahmood Keita III received another Portuguese envoy to the Mali court by the name of Pero Fernandes. This envoy from the Portuguese coastal port of Elmina arrived in response to the growing trade along the coast and Mali's now urgent request for military assistance against Songhai. Still, no help came from the envoy and further possessions of Mali were lost one by one. Mansa Mahmood Keita III's reign also saw the military outpost and province of Kabu become independent in 1537. The Kabu Empire appears as ambitious as Mali was in its early years and conquers Mali's remaining Gambian provinces of Kassa and Badi. The most defining moment in Mahmood Keita III's reign is arguably the final conflict between Mali and Songhai in 1545. Songhai forces under Askia Ishak's brother, Daoud, sack Niani and occupy the palace. Mansa Mahmood Keita III is forced to flee Niani for the mountains. Within a week, he regroups with his forces and launches a successful counterattack forcing the Songhai out of Mandan proper for good. The Songhai Empire keeps Mali's ambitions in check, but never fully conquers the empire, their former masters. After liberating the capital, Mahmood Keita II abandons it for a new residence further north. Still, there is no end to Mali's troubles. In 1559, the kingdom of Futa Toro succeeds in taking Takrur. This defeat reduces Mali to Mandan proper with control extending only as far as Keita in the west, Kongaba in the north, the Niger River bend in the east and Karusa in the south, late Imperial Mali. Mansa Mahmood III's reign ended around 1559. There seems to have been either a vacancy or unknown ruler between 1559 and the start of the last Mansa's reign. A vacancy or rule by a court official seems the most likely, since the next ruler takes the name of Mahmood IV. By 1560, the once powerful empire was not much more than the core of the Mandan Kuru Faba. The next notable Mansa, Mahmood IV, doesn't appear in any records until the end of the 16th century. However, he seems to have the distinction of being the last ruler of a unified Mandan. His descendants are blamed for the breakup of the Mandan Kuru Faba into north, central and southern realms. Mansa Mahmood Keita IV. Mansa Mahmood Keita IV was the last emperor of Mandan according to the Tariq al-Sudan. It states that he launched an attack on the city of Janneh in 1599 with Fulani allies, hoping to take advantage of Songhai's defeat. Moroccan fusiliers, deployed from Timbuktu, met them in battle, exposing Mali to the same technology that had destroyed Songhai. Despite heavy losses, the Mansa's army was not deterred and nearly carried the day. However, the army inside Janneh intervened, forcing Mansa Mahmood Keita IV and his army to retreat to Kongaba. Collapse. The Mansa's defeat actually won Sundiata Keita the respect of Morocco, and may have saved it from Songhai's fate. It would be the Mandinka themselves that would cause the final destruction of the empire. Around 1610, Mahmood Keita IV died. Oral tradition states that he had 3 sons who fought over Mandan's remains. No single Keita ever ruled Mandan after Mahmood Keita IV's death, resulting in the end of the Mali Empire. Mandan divided. The old core of the empire was divided into 3 spheres of influence. Kongaba, the de facto capital of Mandan since the time of the last emperor, became the capital of the northern sphere. The Joma area, governed from Sigiri, controlled the central region, which encompassed Niani. Hamana, southwest of Joma, became the southern sphere, with its capital at Karusa in modern Guinea. Each ruler used the title of Mansa, but their authority only extended as far as their own sphere of influence. Despite this disunity in the realm remained under Mandinka control into the mid-17th century. The 3 states warred with each other as much, if not more, than they did against outsiders, but rivalries generally stopped when faced with invasion. This trend would continue into colonial times against two cooler enemies from the west, the Bamana Jihad. Then, in 1630, the Bamana of Janneh declared their version of holy war on all Muslim powers in present-day Mali. They targeted Moroccan pashas still in Timbuktu and the Manzas of Mandan. In 1645, the Bamana attacked Mandan, seizing both banks of the Niger right up to Niani. This campaign gutted Mandan and destroyed any hope of the three Manzas cooperating to free their land. The only Mandinka power spared from the campaign was Kongaba. Sack of Niani. Mama Maghan, Mansa of Kongaba, campaigned against the Bamana in 1667 and laid siege to Segu Koro for a reported 3 years. Segu, defended by Batun Kalibali, successfully defended itself and Mama Maghan was forced to withdraw. Either as a counterattack or simply the progression of pre-planned assaults against the remnants of Mali, the Bamana sacked and burned Niani in 1670. Their forces marched as far north as Kongaba, where the Mansa was obliged to make a peace with them, promising not to attack downstream of Mali. The Bamana, likewise, vowed not to advance farther upstream than Nyamena. Following this disastrous set of events, Mansa Mama Maghan abandoned the capital of Niani.